fix it, you just have to fight the traffic should be done with it. But as part of improving what constitutes
Welcome everyone, we're going to get started. If you'll take your seat, we'll invite the candidates to come up.
Before we make it work.
I guess so.
How you doing? Good. Okay, all right, getting started, I guess.
Come on up in the hot seat.
Right in the hot seat.
You can write questions.
So I don't need to separate these two?
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Welcome everyone. My name is Haley Kaplan. I'm the president of the Washington County Republican Women. We like to host these forums around the county to help citizens be informed for their voting. So we're so glad you showed up. We're also streaming to our YouTube, and the city is streaming to their Facebook as well. So if you want to share that with your neighbors, that'd be great. Just a couple announcements. So the ballots go out tomorrow, the 14th. So be watching for those coming to your house. They do need to be in by 8 p.m. on November 4th. With the new law, they don't look at postmarks of when, it just needs to be in by 8 p.m. So if I were you, I would recommend just get them in a drop box by 8 p.m. or mail them plenty ahead of time. And you can also vote in person, of course, at the Dixie Center. So be aware of that. There's also another event for these candidates on Wednesday night here, 6 p.m. So share that with friends and neighbors. So they get lots of chances this week. So, and then another event we wanted to announce was next Monday, the 20th. There's a big community event. It's a Charlie Kirk Memorial Healing of America event at the Dixie Center. So please bring your families. It's going to be a great patriotic, inspiring event. That's 6 p.m. next Monday at the Dixie Center. So, all right. Well, we're going to start with a prayer by Councilwoman Janine Burton, and then we'll do the pledge together, and we'll get started. So, Janine.
Our Father in heaven, we come before you this night and thank you for this wonderful city of Santa Clara and for all the people and residents that live here, our friendships, and all the things that we enjoy in this community. We ask for thy blessing to be with all the candidates that are going to be speaking today, and pray that they will have open minds and be able to answer in the best of their ability. And we are so thankful for all that they have done and that do for our community. And we say these things humbly in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. All right, please stand and we'll say the pledge together.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We did invite all the candidates. Krista Hinton and Mark Hendrickson were out of town, so they have sent me a statement that I'm going to read from them before we get started with the others. This is from Krista Hinton. She says, thank you for hosting the Santa Clara candidate event. While I'm unable to be with you tonight, I want to thank you for being here and for your continued commitment to our community. Santa Clara's small town character is worth protecting. As your council member, I've worked to maintain our exceptional quality of life, preserve our heritage, plan responsibly for growth, and strengthen our historic district. I've also been committed to full transparency in my role and have worked to ensure our citizens have a voice in shaping the future of Santa Clara. As a leader with the Utah League of Cities and Towns, I have represented Santa Clara's values at the state level, helping promote policies that strengthen our communities and defend our local authority. With your support, I'll continue working hard to champion our community's future. Thank you, Krista Hinton, candidate for Santa Clara City Council. And then I also have one from Mark Hendrickson. And his says, I hope this message finds you well. My name is Mark Hendrickson, and I apologize for not being able to join you in person today due to a business travel commitment. Santa Clara is more than just a place to me. It is a legacy built by pioneers who embodied grit, vision, and unshakable belief in the community. I have spent my life here raising 2 daughters and now watching my grandchildren grow up with the same deep roots that connect us all to the founding of this city. Our city is growing, and with that growth comes the responsibility to plan wisely, invest in our core infrastructure, and ensure our values are reflected in how we build and connect with each other. My focus is not on making noise, it's on doing the work. This means ensuring that our streets, sidewalks, and parks meet the needs of every generation, from toddlers to grandparents. It means thoughtful development that honors our heritage while embracing new opportunities to strengthen our community. It means collaborating with those who care deeply about Santa Clara, even when our views may differ. I believe the best way to honor our past is to shape the future for our children and grandchildren, so they will be proud to call it home. Let's preserve what matters, let's plan for what's next, and let's do it together. Thank you for your understanding, and I look forward to connecting with you all soon. For additional information, please visit my website, www.mark4sc.com. So that is their message, and we will let these candidates here tonight introduce themselves, and we'll rotate through. So we'll start with Ben. Opening statement, whatever. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Very good. Sounds like we just needed to take a vacation to get out of this, so it's been easy. So yeah, I'm Ben Shakespeare. I know most of you, not all of you, but I'm son of Tom and Gloria Shakespeare, who are here tonight. Son-in-law of Ted and Jeannie Tuttle, who are also here tonight. Married Santa Clara native Tawny Tuttle 30 years ago this year. Yay. We have, thank you. It's hard to take the girl out of Santa Clara. So we've been here for 27 years. We've raised 4 kids here, a girl and 3 boys. We have 3 that are married. We have 1 that's engaged. We have our first granddaughter and 2 more on the way. And we realized that grandkids are way better than kids. So we love that. As part of Santa Clara, I'm a commercial. We own a Tom's Mechanical. My brother and I, Connor, bought Tom's Mechanical for my mom and dad about 8 years ago. I've worked in it a little over 28 years now, 29 years, I guess. Formed in 1984, and it's a legacy we're honored to carry on. So we have about 50 employees. We do commercial plumbing in 8 western states. We have guys down on Costco and here in town and Black Desert and up at the county jail in Cedar City. That's my background. I love doing plumbing. We also own a construction company and development company with a couple partners here that are local, that are friends of mine, that we started as a little hobby and has grown over time. It's an industry I love, both plumbing and construction, something I've cherished and watched my dad do. I've served 12 years. I know a lot of you from Little League. I served on the Little League board for 12 years. We ran all our kids through Little League. I served 5 years as the Little League president. We've lived in multiple places here in Santa Clara, from Googler Drive to down in the valley here over off Riesling and Catawba Circle there. We've lived on Crestview. We've lived in on Parkview, and now we've settled back down here in the valley. Hopefully to end right there next to Jim Hence's field, where we love to be down there on Old Farm. So love Santa Clara. Been on the city council for 8 years. It's been a pleasure working with the council and those that we work with our staff, and our mayor, who's here tonight. We've been very fortunate to have Mayor Rosenberg, and had him for 19 years. We wish we could just clone him and keep him another 19 and not even go through this. But honored to be here, honored to serve, excited to make this run, excited to work with Jarrett and all that. We worked together for a long time. Jarrett and I have been together for 8 years. He's been there a little bit longer, but Santa Clara is in a good spot. I think most of you know that. as you read and you read posts from other cities, we don't have those problems. We don't have those, and it comes from our leader, Mayor Rosenberg, and the staff that we have here, that we're in a really good position. My hope is to keep it that way. I'm honored to be a part of it, so thank you.
Okay, so I'm Jared Waite. I've lived in Santa Clara for since 2006, so 19 years. My wife's just walking in. This is Jenna. So she brought me back to Santa Clara, and I feel so fortunate to live here. Santa Clara is such a special place. We just finished Swiss Days, and I just get such a wonderful community feel whenever I attend that event. And really, just lots of events in the city. We're so fortunate to live here. A little bit of my background. I attended BYU, graduated in business management. And then, as luck would have it, my wife's family started Laser Mania down on the Boulevard in St. George, and they needed a good manager. So I slid into the position, and then we bought it from her parents about 20 years ago. So we just hit 25 years in business. So that's my background, just a small business owner and dealing with teenagers and kids. But it's been a great job for me. It's actually provided me a lot of flexibility, which is one reason why I think I can be a good mayor. We open at 4 on weekdays. And so I can really hit any meeting I need to during the day. And I have good management, so if I need to step away, I can. So that's one thing I'll point out. I've been a member of the Chamber of Commerce that entire time. I'm also a Dixie Sunshiner, so we're like the ambassadors of the Chamber. I've been that since 2009. And then, I've been on the council for 10 years, and it's been such an honor. There's lots of fun stuff that comes along with being on the council, but there's so much fulfilling things you're able to do on the back end. And it's been like one thing in particular I'll point out is when I first got on the council, we were right in the middle of the Great Recession. Things were kind of crazy, and all the city had been able to afford was chip seal on the roads. And I had some residents reach out when I was running for council, like, can you please just get us good roads somehow? And so that was actually one of my first asks at our first budget retreat was, can we get a little extra money for roads? And the council agreed. We put an extra $50,000 in that budget, and that morphed into, we now have a rotation that every 5 to 7 years your road will get repaved, and it's paved with slurry seal, that nice smooth black. It's not chip seal. On our bigger roads we might have to do chip seal, but that goes clear back. I listen to the residents, and I wanted to share that, get that done. Other than that, I've been Mayor Pro Tem for 4 years, and the current Mayor Pro Tem has been doing it for 2 years. We both have experience there. And then I've chaired a lot of committees for the city. So I'm on the cemetery, I'm chair of the cemetery committee, the social media committee, also the orchard committee, and then I'm the chair of the Southwest Mosquito Abatement Committee, or Southwest Mosquito Abatement, and then also the chair of the Community Education Channel. So, and then I've also just attended as many trainings as I possibly could. So there's the Utah League of Cities and Towns that does two conferences a year, and they do tons of trainings. I've gone to every single one of those. Also, the Utah Association of Municipal Power Systems. I've gone to all those trainings. They do those once a year, so I could just really understand what's facing local cities and make sure I'm well educated. I should probably pass that for that.
Well, my name is Jimmy Keston, and I am not running for mayor. I thought it was really, really important to be here with you this evening, and I promise that's the last cheap shot I'll take against my opponents. I am running for city council for a very simple reason. My daughter came to me last year, and she knows at some point, my wife and I have talked about, getting a smaller place than the house she grew up in. And she said, Dad, please don't ever sell this house. I want my boys, and my daughter's 24. She's given us 3 grandchildren. We have a 2-year-old, a 1-year-old, and a newborn. First one was born August 30th, 2023. Grandson number 2, August 30th, 2024. And then the third one decided to beat his brothers and come in on August 25th of this year. And she says, I want my boys to experience the Santa Clara I grew up in. And we moved to Santa Clara a little over 20 years ago from Las Vegas because we didn't want to raise our daughter, who was 3 when we got here, in a place where you needed armed security for them to play outside. You know, our daughter was able to ride her scooter to school. She was able to ride her bike to school, except when she was at the intermediate school because there was no curb and gutter, or Pioneer Parkway was not safe for a 10-year-old at the time. So we drove her to school for those 2 years. Hey, by the way, Pioneer Parkway still is 2 lanes and no curb and gutter. You know, that's probably shouldn't be that way. I'm concerned. I don't think the Santa Clara she grew up in is going to be here for my grandchildren if we're not careful about the decisions we make as a city going forward. You know, we do not need to try to become a mid-size or big city. We certainly don't need to act like one. You know, we need to make sure, and keep it simple. No, you know, a lot of this was done even before these guys were really active in the council. But you know, the idea, what our residents are telling me, I've talked to a lot of our neighbors and friends, and they're all telling me the same thing. Why didn't we have the infrastructure for Pioneer Parkway already figured out before we handed out the hundreds of building permits to add all those extra cars? And how could anyone have thought at the time that it would just take care of itself or fix itself? And we need to be smarter. It doesn't mean we don't grow. It doesn't mean I'm anti-growth. Because I'm a huge defender of personal property rights. If you own property in Santa Clara, you want to do something with that property, you ought to be able to do what you want with it, right up to the point that it affects your neighbor. And when it affects your neighbor, then we need to have a conversation, and then we need to come to some sort of a accommodation for everybody. Right? What I keep hearing over and over again is they just don't feel like the city's listening. And that needs to end.
I told you, mention the note cards on your chair is if you have a question, write it down, hold it up, we'll get that. So we'll try to get through as many as we can. Okay, we're gonna start out with a heavy hitter. Are you ready? So Ivan City just recently passed a tax increase. How will you handle city budgets and propose tax increases? What's your philosophy on that? Let's see, start with Ben, so we'll go to Jared.
Okay, yeah, finance is always a fun thing for a city. You know, if you look at your property tax bill, the city's portion is actually a really small portion. We've been really fortunate to have like the Harmons and that whole area, you know, Bucksace, all that has really helped to bring extra revenue into the city. I know our city staff have asked council a couple of times, like, it would be nice if we could do a little property tax increase. There's been discussion of like just small incremental instead of like these big 30 and 40% increases that other cities do. But, you know, we haven't increased property taxes for a long time in Santa Clara. So it's something we've entertained, we've talked about as a council, but we've also been fortunate that, you know, the last, like I say, like 2 or 3 years, we've shown in our budget, we have to pull from fund balance to balance the budget. You know, for a city, you have to have a balanced budget. You can't go in the negative like the federal government. But numbers have always come in a little better than we expected. And some expenses we've been able to push off, you know, nothing like serious or right, needs to get done right then, but like maybe a piece of equipment can be replaced in the next budget year. And so the department heads hold back. And so we've been okay financially. We haven't had to raise any property taxes. So I don't want to raise property taxes for sure. It's something we'll have to just have a really hard look at, and there'd be tons of citizen input in that process. I think you can look at like what St. George did with their when they wanted to fund their police department with property taxes, and they figured out how to do it without doing property taxes. And so it's definitely like a tricky situation, but yeah, I want to keep a balanced budget, do the best we can to stave off property taxes. And we are fortunate that, you know, the property to the west of Harmon's really developed some commercial, so that would be more revenue for the city. They can stave off further property taxes and be really good services for the residents. So that's where I sit.
Personally, I'm in favor of abolishing all property taxes and would advocate for that. There are 4 states that are trying to do that right now: Texas, Florida, Ohio, and Indiana legislatures are trying to ban property taxes in those states. I think we should be doing that in Utah. Not only am I against raising property taxes, I'm against property taxes. And people would then say to me, well, Jimmy, how are we going to pay for education? Well, how about we pay for that out of the general budget by not spending money on things that government shouldn't be doing? When it comes to government, I am a minimalist. Right? Public safety needs to be well funded. Our police and fire needs to be fully well funded. Those guys need to be paid well so that we get the best talent and keep them here. But you know, there's lots of things that we don't necessarily need to be doing with tax dollars. And I believe that the less we do, the better off we are.
Yeah, so again, we're in a really good spot. So as we've developed, we've had this discussion. I think is Lance still back there? Lance knows that my answer to him every time we discuss this is we better turn every stone before we even discuss this and make sure that the dollars are getting used. But we're in a great spot. Just to talk about things of, developing Harmons and putting Harmons in Santa Clara and the Bucksace and that, they made a huge impact on our revenues. And in 12 years, we've gone from a $600,000 of sales tax revenue to we will eclipse $2 million this year in sales tax revenue alone. That's money that would have been spent at St. George, would have been spent at other cities if we don't have those commercial businesses here locally. So that's revenue that goes into the general fund that then allows us to use those funds on fire and police and EMS and parks and roads and building officials, to where we don't have to even look at raising those property taxes. We've also looked at a pay-as-we-go type mentality, meaning the city has very little bond debt, and we have quite a few bonds that are coming off in the next 5 years. We've taken the approach to try to set ourselves aside to where we can pay for projects with cash and as we go and not bond for them. And perfect example is the road just here on Vineyard Drive. It's a $2.5 million project. The Crestview Water project was all paid in cash. That was another $500,000. If you bond those, you pay $1.9 million over the 20-year bond. We paid cash. We pay off the bond. So I think we're doing things that are great. I think we put ourselves in a really good position. We have needs like every city. I mean, there's no doubt our plumbing pipe has gone up, has quadrupled, since COVID, things like that. The city's no different. Our water pipe, our infrastructure, our electricity, power to be pulled, the conduits, all those costs have exceeded inflation and it's dramatic, but we've managed it well. We continue to manage it well. And I don't foresee us getting to that point. If we do, I can assure you, we will have turned every stone before we get there.
All right, next question is, what do you feel the biggest challenge is for Santa Clara, or what we're facing maybe, or what we will face, and how do we overcome that challenge? Let's start with Jimmy.
Well, I think our biggest challenge really is what exactly does Santa Clara want to be over this next season, over this next generation? What is the Santa Clara we want to hand to our kids and our grandkids? And that is the debate that's been going on. And there are some wildly different views on that. And I think that fits right in with the entire development issue and what we want to be. And I think that the most important thing we can do, and our biggest challenge has been the competing voices who want to vision cast for Santa Clara's future aren't always hearing what our citizens think and what they feel. And we got lots of idea people. We don't have very many listeners. And I'm exceptionally well schooled and experienced public speaker. I've been doing public speaking for many, many years. But there's one thing I'm better at than speaking, and that's listening. And I just think that we need to slow down. We need to get better input on what the vision for Santa Clara is, because it's we have a plan, we have a vision. There's been a lot of discussion about it. But I've talked to a lot of residents and they all feel like they're not being heard. Something's wrong when you have that many people saying they're not being heard. So even if we're doing everything right, and please understand, Santa Clara is the best run city in the state. We have a great city staff, and our elected officials have faithfully worked to try to make this the place that we live in. But something's broken, because you can't have that many people saying they're not being heard. And we need to overcome that challenge and figure out why that is and fix it.
Well, let's three, and then I'll talk on one. It's water, housing, and roads, probably in that order. So I'll speak maybe on water. It's Ron Thompson used to say, we have a lot of problems, but when you have no water, you have one problem, and it's water. So Santa Clara, I'll speak on water. I'm sure we'll cover housing and roads in another topic, but Santa Clara's in a great spot for water. Now, Washington County, I think they're making great strides. I think it all comes down to water storage. We have limited supply. These storms alone, I just heard that Baker Reservoir was empty Friday night and it was full on Saturday. Now, half of that might be logs and mud and debris from the fires, but it's full. And it was there because we had a reservoir to catch it all. So Santa Clara has most of its own water and has rights to where we could produce another 385 million gallons of water through our water rights. And eventually we will develop those, whether it's through our own use or through a compact with neighboring cities in the Washington County Water District. We have the ability to provide all of our water. This is done because city councils and mayors previously, Mayor Byrd, who has two of his kids here tonight, worked with the state, worked with the legislators, worked with Snow Canyon to get us wells in Snow Canyon State Park. And it was because of the knowledge and the expertise he had in water and land that allowed us to do that. So we are, as Dustin would say, he goes to these meetings and they ask, why is Santa Clara even at these meetings? Because we want to come to the table. We were the first to implement smart metering. We've reduced our water use, our culinary water use by 60% over the last 10 years. This has been through conversion of irrigation. It's been through turf removal. It's been through smart metering. A lot of you get the Yopify updates that says, hey, don't water your yard because it's going to rain tomorrow. And we get those reminders, and they're great reminders. We were the first to implement that of all the cities down here, and the results have been great. I mean, it's an incredible number of the savings we've had. We're in a good spot. We need to do better. I think we need storage. I think that's the problem in the West. We live in a desert. Since I was a kid, we prayed for rain. That'll never change until I'm dead. We live in a desert. So we've got to live like that. We've got to act like that. We need to build reservoirs and storage. And I think there's a great plan with the Conservancy. But Santa Clara City's in a great spot.
Yeah, I think Ben's right, housing, water, but I'll bring up one other issue that I think is really pressing for the city, and that is how the electric grid is changing in the West. So we've had trainings on what's going to be happening basically with our power department, and what's occurring is because we use transmission lines that are owned by Rocky Mountain Power, we get sucked into the Energy Day Ahead market, is what it's called, EDAM. And so right now, the way our power works is if we're a little bit short, like on a really, really hot day, we call up UAMPS, they call one of the like a natural gas plant or something, and you have a little extra power, great. And it's like a back and forth and it's done. With the Energy Day Ahead market, we have to submit what our energy use is going to be a day ahead. And the idea is it's supposed to create more reliability. There's less emergencies of power shortages. What that means for a small city like us is it's a lot more complicated and it takes more forecasting. And we should have help from the Utah Association of Municipal Power Systems, but a lot's going to fall on our staff. And the really hard part is that governing authority is based in California. And we all know that California is a great place to visit, but things are always a little more expensive there. And so the biggest question we've had is with intermixing and basically having the California authority controlling who gets what power and how much it costs and everything. It's just a little bit scary. And so I do feel like I'm the liaison with the power department. I have a lot of experience with this. And probably the most vexing issue we had in the last couple of years was the power cost adjustment. And that's a really touchy subject. It did stop our power department from bankrupting. That literally saved the power department from bankrupting. It's an enterprise fund. It's different from the city funds. You can go to zero and negative in an enterprise fund. And so just navigating that's supposed to go into effect early next year. And so just navigating that's going to be really tricky. We have our own power plant, and how that interacts with the grid could be controlled by California. It looks like we'll be able to still run that when we want to, but there's just a lot of intricacies that we'll have to really be on top of, just so we can basically keep rates down as much as possible. And I will share that on the power front, we just signed an agreement to buy into a solar farm up in central Utah that has a battery attached. Because solar is awesome, but it turns off at night when everyone needs the power. And so this actually has a battery attached so that they can shift the power. So the city is really trying to find good sources of inexpensive power so we can keep rates as low as possible. But that energy day-ahead market is going to be really tricky.
All right, they're doing pretty good on time. We're about halfway through. So if you think they're going too long, just start clapping and we'll move along. Good job. We'll get to as many as we can. All right, well, you guys kind of started on it, so we're going to go down the path of housing. How do you balance the affordable housing and the density with, citizens' views? There's always different views on that. So what's your specific guideline that you base your votes on for housing? I think we're back up in.
Yeah, thank you. This is probably the most challenging on the city and for residents. I mean, everybody who lived here, you have a half-acre lots or acre lots or agricultural, and then it goes to smaller lots and quarter-acre lots, and then here we are, still in a housing crisis trying to find affordability in that. And we have kids. That's the problem with Santa Clara in a good way, is nobody wants to leave. Our 4 kids want to come back. Most of your kids want to come back. And so all of them need housing as we look at that and going, how do we provide that? Now, the state and Fed have come back and given states mandates, or really, we have to meet moderate income housing acts, meaning we have to go through a list of 25 items, and each city had to submit and say, we are going to comply with this by doing several of these things. And every city is different. Some cities, maybe a Salt Lake City would look with high rise and things like that. But a city like Santa Clara comes in and goes, okay, we've got a bedroom community. How do we meet that to where it's not forced upon us, but also allow us to keep with the charm and the heritage of our city. So we started with accessory dwellings. We started with that piece there, accessory dwelling and internal accessory dwelling. You've seen those ADUs and IADUs. These are a way you can go to your home. You can add a mother-in-law suite, or on the side of the home, it can be attached or detached. It can be internal or external. They're defined differently. There's codes that, certain setbacks in that. As long as the home is owner occupied, you can do this, and you can rent it legally. And what this does is, typically in most cases, if you're renting a home that you're living in or renting a room that you're living in, you're going to be very selective on who you pick. You're typically going to be under what the market rate is. And that helps solve, that's probably the number one thing we have in Santa Clara to us. And then from there, you start to identify, where can we put the smaller lots? Where can you put a little bit of density? And from Santa Clara, you go, typically you want that where your transportation is going to be, where your commercial districts are. You try to put that in areas where you've got walkability and things like that. And so we have passed ordinances that allow for as small as a 4,000 square foot single family. I think the council felt that it was more important to have smaller lots with single family homes over townhomes. We have passed townhomes. We've been burned thinking these were going to be sold, and developers have rented them all and kept them, and that's hurt us with housing, affordability and having that availability. But we've learned from it. We certainly will learn from it, and I think as we move through that, we have 1 acre lots in the downtown here. We have as small as 4,000 square foot lots that allow. We've had 2 kids that just purchased in the last year homes like this. They run in the 375 to 4.25, and that's not affordable when our parents built homes at 50,000 and we built at 150. But in today's market, that's affordable. You know, a 10,000 square foot lot with that home's gonna be 850. And so we've done great things. I think it's challenging. This is one of the more challenging things because nobody wants it close to them. Nobody wants to see the change. There is pressure on cities to do that. I think we've managed it well, maybe not perfectly, but I think we've done well. And we'll continue to look at that and hear concerns and make the best decision. So, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I'll ditto basically everything Ben just said. You know, housing is really tough. I think my personal view is just trying to really push home ownership. So Ben mentioned, you know, we approved some townhomes up across from Lava Ridge, intermediate school, and that was sold to us as a council as this will be attainable housing. Every single one of those townhomes up there is plotted individually. And the first developer that got the approval sold the project to another developer, and that developer decided to sell the entire project to one owner, which is legal. Like, you know, there's no law against selling every lot to one person and every unit to one person. But, you know, that's my neighborhood. I live up on Rachel, just down the street from there. And it's just been so difficult to see, you know, the rent will be $2,000 a month for a townhome. That's most of a lot of people's mortgages. And then often it's like an intro rate for the first year. And then when it comes up for renewal, it jumps like an extra $500. It's just really, really tough. And, you know, we'll see wonderful people move in, and after a year, they just literally have to move, like they can't afford the rent there. And so, yeah, my push would be, we've talked on council, and I just went to a training about deed restrictions. And I know it gets a little tricky with like loans if there's a deed restriction, but the idea is that if we're gonna give you some sort of density, then there'd be a deed restriction where, and there's different ways you can play it, but one idea would be if you sell your home, you don't get to take the profit with you. It stays with the house. And so that keeps the price low over time. There is like a gradual appreciation that you do get, but if it's built for a really affordable price, you get it for that. You can't just walk away in a year and take all that profit and then it's back at market rate. So there's other ways we could do things with deed restrictions, but that's kind of what my view is, to move towards that. Especially when, you know, developers come in and they really want to pack in the units, and that's part of profitability, and it can make things more affordable. If you look at like Blackhawk, you know, there's a little bit thinner roads up there, and we did that so we get more units in, and that was an affordable product when it was built. I think most of it's turned into rentals now because they bought it at a great price, they were able to go buy something else, and they rent it. So it's not perfect, but I think deed restrictions is what I would bring up that I want to start working on.
Yeah, housing is an issue, and one of the reasons it's an issue is my personal belief is that zoning should be solely the job of city government. And when states start mandating how we zone our property, and you know, a couple of years ago, in the last administration, they wanted to federalize zoning at the federal level to tell a city like Santa Clara what kind of houses we should build and what kind of property. And that's a decision that only Santa Clara should be allowed to make. And we need to push back and fight back against state intrusion on how and what we build. I do believe that we are a veteran community. We're a suburban community. Those of us who didn't grow up, those of us who moved here on purpose, moved here for a lifestyle, single family homes, nice sized lots, that kind of, the kind of neighborhoods that creates. And we should be able to preserve that if we want to. You know, and what we really need to avoid, if you want to, you know, it seems like every project that gets built under the guise of affordable housing, and we're going to put these, you know, more affordable, less expensive townhomes, and then all of a sudden, somewhere along the line, someone slips in that you can make it a weekly, daily rental, or it doesn't have to be owner occupied. The next thing you know, the price of the thing doubles, and investors are buying it up and renting it out. And, you know, how's that affordable housing? It all comes down to, we need to fight to gain control of our zoning, and we need to fight against mandates that make us turn the city into something we don't want it to be.
All right, next question. What is your vision specifically for things like the historic district and the orchard downtown, this area right here? So I think we started with that.
So I think when people come to town, I mean, you hear a lot during Swiss Days, you know, it's a lot of locals, but we get a lot of people that come to Swiss Days because it's so awesome. And what you hear over and over is the downtown is amazing. Just seeing the trees, the manicured lawns, it's just such a special place. And so I definitely want to maintain that as much as humanly possible. If you're not aware, there was a very strong effort put in last year to pass some historic downtown guidelines for design. And it's not like you have to paint your house this color, but you do have some choices to choose from. So things blend and we maintain that look in the downtown. So I definitely support that effort. And the idea is that if you have to tear down a house because it's been condemned or something, you need to rebuild in a way that it looks like it belongs. So you still have lots of options in how you build your house, but you have some menu options basically to choose from. So I definitely support that. On the orchard, like I said, I chair that committee. We'll give you a little bit of background on that. It was owned by the church. And then when we put in the Chapel Street Bridge, we had to buy a little section of the orchard to have enough width for the road. And when that happens, the actual land went from the welfare department of the church to the real estate department of the church. And so the two stake presidents in Santa Clara wrote Salt Lake and said, please, please, please don't sell this, donate it to the city. Because those stake presidents were just worried it would just turn into more homes. And that's a very special area of Santa Clara. And so it was donated to the city under the guise that it would be open space and, you know, probably just maintain its use. So we got the community together. We brought in several people from the downtown that really know trees and really know how things grow down here. And the advice given was the trees are old, we should tear them out and replant new. And maybe have a slightly different vision of the orchard where we would trim them so you don't have to use ladders to pick. So it'd be a little less on production, more on like teaching of what will grow well here. And that's exactly what I want to do. I want to keep it an orchard. We've had plans of like maybe a little education building down in the bottom, a place to wash vegetables and a place to have like raised garden beds. That's an option. I don't know if we'll have that or not. It's pretty expensive to do that, but and we actually had money in the budget to buy trees and get them in the ground, and then COVID messed that up and the supplier fell through. So you'll see it's still vacant. It is good to have the land rest for a while and then plant new trees, but that's my hope for the orchard.
Thank you. I think that I am in favor of, the guidelines for our historic district and having some, minimal, like to keep things looking the way we want it to look. And of course, the community is involved and people live down there. We also, this is a real challenge because we have some properties down there that people want to do things with the property they own. And their vision for that property, what they want to do with the property might not have been what it was previously. And I believe that we need to protect people's ability to do with their property what they want to do, right up again to the point where it affects your neighbors. And that's where we have a conversation. I think that there is the concern is, will we have unchecked development that spoils the look and feel of downtown? And I would be opposed to that. I think that there are ways to balance the desire to develop parts of downtown and keep the feel and look. And that's where the historic look and the building, what you can build, how it has to look, the appearance. You can put a lot of things in and then just make sure that you're making it look right for the area. We can do those kind of things. I think that the first and foremost, we cannot be in the business of telling you what to do with your land. Right? We can work around the edges. We can work to make sure that it is consistent with the community, but the less interference the city has in telling you what to do with your life, your property, your family, the better city government is. And that will always be my fallback position. Less is more when it comes to government. And less interference in your life is even better. Yes, we have to do things for the entire community benefit. Yes, it's important that we come up with a plan, an idea of what we want the historic district to look like. But that can be done while balancing those other things. And I think that's really the key.
We have the greatest downtown of all of Utah and possibly go up against a lot in the entire nation. So I think we know that. I think we hear it from our friends. We hear from those that visit. We want to protect the downtown. We've taken measures. That's one of my assignments as a council member, as a Heritage Commission. I was at those meetings going hour after hour with Mimi McKenna and the entire Heritage Commission in getting the historic guidelines put together. They're great. They will do exactly what the intent is there. So as far as moving forward, we've got some great opportunities in the downtown. Regarding the city owns several properties in the downtown and has the opportunity in the future through different ways to provide a blueprint of what the downtown could be. One of those is right across the street here. So you go, okay, start it, and you look at, Jared spoke on the orchard. I believe the orchard should be a public-private partnership where we met with the Heritage Commission and we would love to build the original Santa Clara Chapel on that corner and use private dollars to develop the orchard and create a this is a place type scenario where you can put events and weddings and still have the orchard and the garden and the maintenance and have this beautiful place. They want to do a small barn there. Obviously, we need to figure out parking and things like that, but you would create a way to build an event downtown. You'd have a way to bring people downtown. You'd build the orchard and pay for the orchard, and you'd do it without zero tax dollars. So that's one thing there. I think there's opportunities there on the property across the street. I think every landowner has the opportunity to do what they want. The intent under the historic guidelines and the zoning that we have down there, which is a mixed-use zone, is that you put the buildings up to the front, so you create these beautiful frontage properties with either two-story or businesses low, residents above, or property behind. You put your parking behind to where you're not seeing parking lots from Santa Clara Drive. We preserve the trees, those are protected. We encourage the planting of more trees, which we need to do. And from there, we begin to create this really cool and expand this great, Swiss Days stops right here at the City Hall. There's no reason that couldn't take the entire Santa Clara Drive where people could go from the boutique businesses all the way down Santa Clara Drive during Swiss Days and obviously throughout the rest of the year. So the businesses we're looking at are boutique. They're not your Mavericks and things like that. They're your coffee shops, they're your Fry's fruit stand, they're your restaurants. I think Fry's is looking at doing a meat shop, which would be fantastic. We all love that. The other thing I think we need to be very much involved in is whatever the church does with the existing building. We know they're building a new stake center right here. We don't know what's going to happen with the original, with the church we have now. We certainly, I think the city needs to be very much involved in that discussion, and we need to do everything we can to make sure we have the first right. Whatever, if they're disposing of that church, we need to make sure we have a seat at that table and we're ready for that. There's a lot of good that can come from that. There's great parking behind there. We need to come up with plans for Heritage Square and funding for Heritage Square. I believe we need to come up with conservation easements for a few of our garden areas that are in the downtown. We don't need to preserve them all, but we certainly need to preserve a few that keeps that charm of the downtown. We can do it. It's going to take, the city cannot fund this alone. If we want to avoid property tax, we need to look at this from public-private ventures and have the city lead this charge to make sure we're at the front of that and we get these properties and that we can create something for a legacy project in the downtown. I certainly think we will. So thank you. You're done.
Did I miss any cards so far? Just checking in. If you have another question, just wave your hand. We'll get it from you. Otherwise, we're going to try to get through a couple more here with our time left. Okay, what is a specific qualification that you have that makes you the best candidate for either mayor or city council? Let's see, did you start with Jared?
Well, my resume is on my website, which is jimmykeston.com. But the highlights are, I spent 15 years, the last 15 years, I retired 2 years ago. As an assistant vice president for State Bank of Southern Utah, I was both a facilities coordinator. I did all of the construction loan inspections for every commercial and residential property loan that the State Bank did for more than a decade. I was a former chairman of the board of the Chamber of Commerce. I am a sunshiner as well, and was very active in the chamber for many, many years. I was also the founder of the Washington County Interfaith Council, along with a couple of other prominent members of the faith community. These days I'm a part-time hospice chaplain, which confirms that part about being a better listener than a talker, and devoted to trying to be the very best grandpa I can absolutely be.
Yeah, for me, it's maybe a couple things. I'm the eternal optimist. I believe, you find we see it, government, the old saying, don't let a good catastrophe go to waste. We hear all the problems are out there, and I like to focus on the successes we've had. And I'll always do that. I'll always find the good in what we're doing. I also think I'm one that can bring people together. I think this goes back to Little League. When I first got on the board, certainly as president, this is when club ball, we've all, those baseball families here that have traveled all over the nation to play baseball, juggling competitive baseball in Little League was very difficult. And certainly we had to come together and find ways to make that work. And I do that across the board through the businesses, through Tom's Mechanical and those that I work with. I do that with our kids. I'm certainly I just think it's important to hear people. We may never agree or may not agree on everything, but I have no problem listening. I have no problem hearing the side. I have no problem saying I'm wrong. And I think people appreciate that. I appreciate working and I appreciate learning from people. So I think that's probably the greatest quality I have and something I certainly rely on.
So I think for me, it would be just my dedication to city council. Like I said, I've done it for 10 years. And I mentioned earlier, I've gone to lots of trainings. I actually counted it up, so I'll give you a real number. It's over 350 specific trainings I've been to in the last 10 years. I view those events as kind of the professional training for a city council person. And I just really made sure that I take advantage of every opportunity I have to learn and bring that back to the city. And just to give you like a quick example, like I was at Utah League of Cities and Towns 2 weeks ago for training up in Salt Lake. And one of the classes was on the new ADA requirements for websites if you're a government. And if I hadn't gone to the class, I don't know when the city would have heard about this issue. But we basically have about a year and a couple months left where our websites have to be completely ADA accessible. And it's actually a pretty difficult lift with the way screen readers work and contrast on websites. And anyways, I was able to bring that back to our staff and they're already working on it, so we can be well ahead of that. And then just beyond that, just with dedication to the position, I've always been really wanted to listen to residents. And I know Jimmy has said that people feel like they don't get heard. I think sometimes that's a mix of like, I didn't get what I wanted, so I wasn't heard, versus you were heard, but it just didn't work out for you. But I've always tried to find collaboration. And when hard projects have come through, I've met residents in their homes. And at this point, where I've been on council for this long, and I've lived in the Valley, I've lived in the Heights, I'll just make a phone call and, hey, how are you feeling about this? What do you think? How do you think I should act on this? And I just really value that input from residents. So that would be just what I would want to say.
All right, we're down to a couple minutes here, so let's have closing statements, but with that, just kind of include your vision for the next 4 years. If you win this term, what do you see? What do you want to see for the city?
I have a question.
Another question. She's on our board.
Before closing statements, let's just do one fun.
Okay, we're going to interject this before. If you had to recommend another candidate for council mayor, who would you recommend and why? That's a hard one. Okay, let's see. We start with Jimmy. Start up then.
Yeah, thanks, Alexis. She timed that one knowing it was me. So what was the question again? If I was,
If you had to recommend another candidate for council or mayor, who would you recommend and why?
are you speaking specifically someone running or somebody in the community?
Someone running or the community,
Oh.
it's your question, you answer.
Well, I'll speak with those that I've worked with. And I'll speak because if I may, I'll use this time to speak with those that aren't here. So obviously, Krista Hedden, those that know her, Krista's amazing. David Pond's here, see you there. So Krista is the one that is on the lead. She's on the lead chair. She's the board. She goes to all these meetings. She updates us on policies, on everything that's coming through. She's fantastic. She's funny. If you don't know Krista, she's got a sense of humor. You wouldn't know it until you get to be one-on-one with her. But Krista's a great leader. She's somebody that cares deeply for the community and somebody that works hard. And I would say the same for, you've got, we've got a lot of people here. I wish the mayor would run. Mayor's right there. Mayor, if you'd just run another 8 years, we wouldn't even have to worry about this. So we've got a lot of people, and I'm not gonna, Mark Hendrickson, I've been on treks with him. There will nobody that'll work harder than Mark. He's passionate, you know that. Anybody that's met Mark, he's very passionate. He shows it, but he loves the city. He cares for the city. I know Jared does the same. I haven't worked much with Jimmy, but I know Jared works hard. We all work hard. We could sit here and say, well, we've got all these problems and boy, and it's not. It's just, we are in such a good place because of the leadership we've had, because of the people we have. I just can't sit here and say enough that the future for Santa Clara is extremely bright, and it will be because of the people that love and care for Santa Clara.
So I don't know if people really want name drops on this. I've had people talk to me about I thought about running for council, and I just don't want to call somebody out, but I will say that I would want to just find someone that wants to listen to residents, that will be thoughtful and be available, be able to go to trainings, and really, because it's tricky getting on a council, and Councilman Burton can attest to this. I have the same experience where when I ran for council, I hadn't been on a planning commission. I went into it very green, and it took a good year before I was really comfortable in a meeting to say what I wanted to say, and about 2 years till I really had my feet under me. And so you need someone that can really just kind of dig in. And the Utah League of Cities and Towns has some great training to help new council members get on board. But yeah, I would just look for someone that's conservative, that is very fiscally aware, and doesn't want to bring up a bunch of debt in the city like Ben has spoken on. And that will just do their best to listen to residents and at the same time, look at issues on both sides and really give all the sides a good listen and try to find a good balance.
Gee, thanks, Alexis. Well, first of all, I know both of these guys, and I can assure you that I will work well with either of them. Whichever becomes our next mayor. As far as others running for, that's an interesting question. I've known Krista for many, many years. Her dad and I have been friends for almost 20 years. And I know that she's got an amazing heart for this community. I've known Mark for many, many years. I was part of my duties at State Bank. I was the facility coordinator for all of our buildings in Washington County. So I did a lot of business with Mark over the years. Always enjoyed doing business with him. But as always, I will just say what I think. If I thought there was anyone else that could do the job that we need done on city council, I wouldn't have run. I'm running because I believe I am the person that we need on the city council to preserve and defend our community and make sure that we hand it to our kids the way we found it or better.
All right, thanks for letting us throw that one in. We're gonna let you close now. Just any message you want to give to the voters of why they should choose you for your closing statements. I think we start with Jared.
Okay, do you want us to talk about the next 4 years?
Yeah, your vision
Okay.
of the next 4 years. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny, running for this position, like, it's stepping into very big shoes. Obviously, Mayor Rosenberg has done amazing work for our city for so long. And it's funny, you know, people ask me like, what's your platform? And I've had to think through, and there are some pressing issues that we haven't even brought up tonight, like the splash pad and a couple other things. But that's kind of a testament to how the city is run and how it's been led by Mayor Rosenberg. There's no huge issue that's like gonna blow up the city. And so really my vision is responsible growth, trying to find ways to encourage affordable housing, trying to stay up on top of power rates, maintaining how the downtown looks. A lot of what we've already talked about, but really it's more of the same. And so hopefully that's what you've liked and how the city's run. And if there is something that needs to change, I'll be all ears. You know, I'll definitely want to hear whatever residents say.
Thank you, and thanks to the Washington County Republican Women for putting this on and for faithfully bringing the important things that the people need to see in front of them. You guys do a great job, and what a privilege to be in front of you this evening and ask for your vote. It's not an easy thing to do. We would be remiss, I have to say, Mayor has done such an amazing job over these years that we live in a great city, and we owe Rick a great debt of thanks for the work he's done all these years, and that we're not running to fix a disaster. But there are, you know, we're at a critical time in what the future of Santa Clara is going to look like. And I think that we just need to be very careful about the decisions we make, because they will not just impact us for the present, but we have to look at how they're going to impact us for the future too. And I think that we can accomplish that if we hear everybody out, if we make sure that we're explaining our decisions. You know, one of the things I used to do for the bank when we had to, when somebody had to be corrected, or when there was when somebody had to be turned down, I'm usually the guy they send in, because I could sit down with a developer and explain to them the reasons why we couldn't do the project that they wanted to do, and actually have them thank me instead of curse me by the time we finished. We need to be better listeners than we are talkers. We need to make sure that we are defending the Santa Clara that we all know and love with our last breath.
Well, thank you. For the record, I did call Alexis several years ago about running for city council. So you know I called, you can bounce out. I didn't want to name drop you, but I will now. So she was called, and she's doing a great job on other assignments. So I would say, well, the first thing I'm going to do, and I won't go into details on this, come day one, we will be over at the county office going to get funds for fire and EMS. So there's funding over there. Those that don't know, we cover a very large area that's outside of our geographical boundary. We cover all the way to the Nevada line. So there's bills and that in place to do it, but I do believe that we've got to work with them in supporting our fire and EMS and doing that. It may take some time, but I think it's an important thing, and something that I don't think the tax burden should fall upon our residents to cover those. So as far as the rest, I do believe, and we spoke on most of them, I think the downtown's key. I think it's important. In the next 4 years, the existing church will be there. We need to have a plan in place with the church to visit on that, if available. Maybe it doesn't. I think we've got, there are housing and water needs that we certainly will continue to work on. There's projects in place with us. And then I think we need to pay off our debt. We've got, I think, 4 or 5 bonds that pay off in the next 4 years, maybe 5, that open us up really well to put ourselves in a great financial position. I will say this, speaking on the past, the present, I've spoke a little bit on it. I saw a little blip going around social media. I love anonymous posts. I wish that should be illegal, but you know, anyone that, if you're gonna say something on social media, have the courage to put your name behind it. But it's, people are gonna use my background and my profession as a negative in this. They just will. I'm a master plumber by trade. We started a hobby as a construction company, and it's turned into something that's fairly big and you know, in Shakespeare development. That will be used against me, and that's fine. If you go back in the history of our mayors and you look at the history of those that have managed this city, I spoke on Mayor Bird. Mayor Bird was able to get the wells in Snow Canyon. No one could have done that without having the experience and the knowledge that he had with the profession he lived underwater and land. He couldn't have done that. Nobody could have done that. You look at the floods that we've had. You look at the landslides we've had. Mayor Rosenberg's been here 19 years and has a background in civil engineering and probably 5 other degrees that I don't know about. But without that experience, he doesn't have the knowledge to meet with federal and state agencies on how to mitigate that and how to get funding and how to do those things and how to manage that. It was their experience that allowed us to go through those times and do it well. My experience in construction as plumbing, running a small business, and I've been in the field as early as this last fall working at, it brings an experience on how to job estimate, on how to cost, on how to understand, you know, bonding and performance and looking at bid documents and RFPs and how these things go about. I have experience in historic preservation and how to run through those grants and things like that. I've worked on conservation easements and land conservation. Those are things that I've done personally and understand. I would never have that experience if I didn't have the background I have. So I think from that, I think it's important to understand that each of us come in this. You know, Jarrett from an IT side is going to be way better than I'm going to be. When it comes to putting plumbing in a house and hooking up your water heater, I'll probably be the expert in that, and we're okay doing that. That was what makes our council so great in that. But I just hope the residents understand that our professional backgrounds are automatically brought into this. Being a developer does not mean I want to develop and ruin Santa Clara. Being a developer gives me the experience and understanding to help Santa Clara navigate very complex issues, help us find the water. I understand that. And I think from that point, I would hope the residents would see that. They would see I'm real, I'm here, I'm committed to the community. I love the community, and certainly would appreciate your vote on this year, November 4th.
Yes, it takes a lot of courage to put your hat in the ring, so I appreciate these gentlemen. I've worked with all 3 of them in different capacities. They're men of high integrity, and the others that aren't here as well tonight. So thank you so much for attending. Thank you, audience, for please share with me. We will adjourn the meeting. You can visit with them individually if you'd like. There's also another event on Wednesday to get to know them. So thank you.
By the way, I got another batch of yard signs, so if you want a yard sign and didn't get one, I do have some in my truck.
Good job. Thank you.